Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kara Dickerson, Vice President, Strategic Partnerships and Conferences of the Consumer Technology Association.
Hello, and welcome to Reimagining Television, a conversation with Hulu and Turner. This afternoon, we'll explore how content companies compete for their most precious commodity, consumers' time. With us, we have two of the leading minds in content creation and distribution, John Martin, Chairman and CEO of Turner, and Randy Freer, CEO of Hulu. Under John's leadership, Turner is going through the single largest technology transformation since Ted Turner founded the company. John was named CEO in 2014 after a 12-year run with Time Warner. John's portfolio spans everything from news to entertainment, kids programming to sports. Think CNN, TBS, TNT, plus a host of other three-letter acronyms you're probably familiar with. That means just about everything and everyone falls under his purview. From world news in the lead with Jake Tapper to an animated world in Dan Harmon's Rick and Morty. Or put it another way, Turner brands reach over 80% of all adults and over 70% of all millennials in the US every month. And while their traditional competitors' audiences are getting older, Turner's audiences are actually getting younger. Meanwhile, at Hulu, Randy Freer has come on to lead the company into its next chapter as a live and on-demand television and advertising powerhouse. Randy was named CEO in October of 2017, taking the reins as Hulu builds on its new live pay TV service, groundbreaking Emmy wins, and $1 billion ad business. He joined after a 20-year run at Fox, where most recently he served as president and COO of Fox Networks Group, which includes FX, Fox Sports, and National Geographic Partners. Randy was also responsible for rights acquisitions and team and league relationships on behalf of Fox Sports, which means he oversaw negotiations related to the NFL, Major League Baseball, NASCAR, and more. Together, these two business leaders cover a huge swath of the content community. Both Turner and Hulu have created partnerships and made strategic investments to extend beyond their core offerings. And both Randy and John understand today's competitive landscape. John and Randy will be joined on stage by Matthew Garahan, global media editor of the Financial Times. Matt has written extensively on the disruptive impact of technology on the media. He's covered the rise of Netflix and Spotify and the emergence of Google and Facebook as digital advertising powerhouses. He regularly appears on CNN, BBC, and MSNBC, and has earned accolades for his news-breaking reporting. Please join me in welcoming John, Randy, and Matt to the CES stage.
Thunder, feel the thunder. Lightning and the thunder. Thunder, feel the thunder. Lightning and the thunder.
Well, hello everyone, and hello guys. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Very impressive introductions you got there.
We had to take up a little bit more of the hour, so,
right?
Make sure it's all good.
It took me 2 weeks to write that.
2 weeks to craft the perfect intro. So we're here to talk about the reimagining of television and the future of TV. And you've both worked in TV for many years, not to age you here, but
I was just going to say, how old do you think
have
you are?
a wealth of experience on the stage here. And TV is obviously changing a huge amount, as seen by big deal activity, which people like me have been writing about ad nauseum for the last 12 months or so. So we should get this out of the way first, because I'm not sure how much either of you can talk about this, but the companies you work for are both in the middle of very significant deals. I mean, John, you work for Turner, part of Time Warner, which is hopefully being acquired by AT&T, but there's some little White House wrinkle in the ointment there, which may stop that from happening. Randy, Hulu, shareholders are Walt Disney, Fox, Time Warner as well.
Don't forget NBC.
And NBC, of course, yeah. Disney's buying Fox will obviously have a big bearing on you and a big bearing on Hulu. So
I wanted
kick
to
off
personally welcome
Yes.
Randy
to the family.
to the merger integration. Welcome to the Octagon.
Yeah,
There
yes.
you go. We're ready.
So with all this hanging over you, what does this do to your sort of day-to-day planning and running a business? How do you run a business when you've got this kind of uncertainty about a deal like that hanging over your head?
I guess at Turner and Time Warner, we've been in it a little bit longer than Hulu. From a running Turner standpoint, our mission has been pretty clear from the get-go, which is keep your head down, execute on your strategy. To the extent the law allows, start to do some integration planning, but there's a lot of limitations in terms of what you're allowed to do. So
you can't start talking to AT&T now about what you might do. You're not
we've
allowed
had
to.
some, I mean, look, we've had discussions, all of which have been overseen by countless numbers of lawyers to make sure we don't run afoul of the rules.
Right.
You know, I mean, at this point, I think the deal was announced 15, 16 months ago. I mean, at this point, I think everybody just wants a little bit of clarity and certainty, and our full expectation, and I'm not a regulatory expert, but I'm putting my faith in the hands of the great teams of folks that we have that are working on to try to close this deal. We, at Turner, our view would be this can't close fast enough.
Right.
We're really, really excited about getting on and moving with AT&T, and it's a way to supercharge the strategy that we've been on at Turner now. And you know, but it's a necessary part of the process, and we're incredibly respectful of that.
Yeah.
And we remain optimistic that the deal will close. In the history of the United States, no vertical merger, which is interesting as you juxtapose sort of a Disney, Fox versus AT&T, Time Warner. No vertical merger that looks like this has ever been blocked.
Right.
So this would be a new precedent that we're anticipating won't happen.
So were you surprised when the Department of Justice sued to block it? And also given the, you know, what we sort of hear and what we've read in his Twitter feed, the president himself seems to feel about the deal.
You know, this is where I can't really specifically comment on anything associated with that. I would suggest personally, I was disappointed.
Right.
But that just means that there was an extension of the uncertainty as it relates to whether the deal will close or not. But I'm still hopeful that, you know, we're weeks and a couple of months maybe, and not too long of an extended period. Because as with most businesses where there's uncertainty, a lot of, you know, bad things can fill that void. And so I'm trying as the leader of Turner to keep everybody, all the great people that work at Turner, just focused on the day-to-day, making sure we're executing on our strategy. In the meantime, we're still doing really well.
Right. Randy,
I think at Hulu,
quite new in the job, and then suddenly this deal happens. What does that do?
it's exciting. I think for Hulu, we're a little luckier, right? We're a company, an independent company. Two of our board members are, you know, merging together. We get to ignore all the noise. We are right in the middle of everything. When you think about the press and other things that have been written about where everything's going, and in this, you know, in this run-up to get to the consumer, we've been at it for a while. We announced yesterday 17 million households. I think 17 million subs. I think if we, as Hulu, as a business, ignore the noise, continue to drive forward with the momentum we have, spend our time trying to acquire subscribers and drive value to those subscribers, you know, we'll just be a bigger and bigger and bigger part of however these companies come out on the other side.
Will having a controlling shareholder make it easier to get, you know, add subs, to get bigger?
Look, I think a lot of the time will tell. I think the reality is we have a group of owners, all of which are the largest creators of content in the world, create access for us to that content. So whether we have a majority controlled or you know, the current board the way it is, I think we just have to keep doing what we do, making sure that we create a great experience for consumers. And ultimately, as the regulatory process, you know, plays out, we'll find out more about what one or another may want to do. But you know, for us, I think finally we have a path to scale, we have huge momentum, and we're really excited about the prospects of a direct-to-consumer, live and on-demand business supported by ads and no ads that really is at the forefront of where everybody's trying to go. And we have a huge head start. We have to make sure we take advantage of that and not get caught up in the, you know, noise around mergers.
So tell us a little bit about that, about the the sort of the origins of the company. I mean, it was founded by some of the biggest media companies in the country. It's always been U.S. Restricted, in that it's available in the US, it's not available anywhere else in the world. Do you think over time that Hulu will become more international or look beyond America's borders?
Well, I think that as we look at Hulu inside, Hulu has come through an evolution of time. I mean, it's almost 10 years old, but really it was created constantly in a defensive position. It was a defense against YouTube at one point in time. Then it was a defense against Netflix at another point in time, and a defense against pay TV erosion. I think now we're in a place where we're becoming very offensive in our investment, very aggressive in our marketing, very focused on adding subscribers. Ultimately, we're in the U.S. today. We did at one point in time have a business in Japan, which we subsequently have sold off over the last few years. And we're going to look at what our business looks like internationally. And quite honestly, one of the best things that may come out of this merger is the global footprint that comes in the consolidation in that place. So we'll have real opportunities. We know we have to solve two things, right? We have to solve some of the challenges that media companies have today in global marketplaces and how they can sell their content as more and more content gets the value of U.S. content internationally continues to have some questions. And we have to be able to grow our subs and really be competitive in that process. So we'll evaluate over the next few months and ultimately determine how we are going to attack the international markets, obviously based on also what our board is looking to achieve.
Yeah. Just take a step back here, both of you, for a second. And the session earlier on, I don't know if you saw it, with David Zaslav and Aryeh Berkoff. We're talking a lot about the FANGs, right? Facebook and Amazon and Apple and Netflix and Google, and what that's done to traditional media companies. I mean, Hulu was as you said, was created in part in response to that and to time being spent on other platforms. But John, for Turner, what is the sort of a world where big tech companies are spending huge amounts on content and building big global content businesses? What does that mean for you, for Turner?
So I started to lead Turner in the beginning of 2014, and when I joined the company, I'd come from Time Warner, so it's not like I was a complete alien to Turner, but when I led the company, Turner thought of itself as an ad-supported, wholesale cable television network company. And it became very apparent to the senior leadership team, including myself, that we had to essentially reinvent the company from the inside out in order to ensure that over the next 5 to 10 years, we were going to stay relevant and stay significant in the overall video consumption business. And it's exactly because there's been a massive drop in barriers to distribution. There's been a massive inflow of capital toward professional, long-form, short-form, scripted, unscripted content. There's massive choice for consumers to determine what they want to see, where, and when. And they're in the full-on in control. We're not in control. The consumers are in control. So we're calling this thing almost a race to the center, where traditional premium content companies are trying to gain technology expertise, scale, and the ability to engage fans versus just being the attention business, which is traditional Nielsen metrics. And then the big digital companies, which are principally dominated by Google and Facebook, they're trying to develop, including Amazon and some others, the ability to create premium content. And we think the race means that it doesn't mean there's going to be a winner take all, but it does mean that those companies that will succeed in the end will be able to create premium content, unique experiences to addicting fans, engaging people to allow them to come back over and over and over again and enjoy the very best experiences that they want. And we're going to need to be able to ultimately control the end-to-end technology experience. We're going to have to know who those fans are. We're going to have to be able to super serve them. From an advertising standpoint, we're going to have to know who they are so that we can monetize at much higher rates than we're doing today. And I think what a lot of people don't understand, and frankly, this is one of the things that I think the government is missing as it relates to looking at these mergers in a backward-looking way, is we're competing in the land of the giants. If you don't think Facebook and Google and Amazon are the land of the giants, think again. I mean, Netflix spending $8 billion in programming next year. Amazon probably spending $4.5 billion. Apple now committing a couple of $1 billion. I mean, we're going to need scale and expertise to create engaging consumer experiences to ensure that 5 and 10 years from now, when there's almost infinite choice, that our brands still rise to the top.
But do you need to spend as much as them? Do you need the cash to spend?
Well, I think there is, capital doesn't ensure success,
Right.
but scale certainly helps. So we spend $4 billion at Turner on programming expenses a year. I think HBO is in the area of 2.5, and I think Warner's with the shows that it creates is in the area of 2.5. That gives you a lot of heft in the creative community to make sure that the best projects are coming and you get a look. It doesn't mean you're going to succeed, but I would much rather be on the bigger side of scale right now than when you look at small little cable network groups that I think are going to really struggle to fight for relevance as we move ahead.
Yeah, to add to that, I think we at Hulu are incredibly excited about the opportunity to compete against the biggest companies in the world. When you think about it, Amazon and their Prime Video, it's a terrific product, but ultimately their goal is about Amazon Prime, it's about membership, it's about selling things. Apple is about selling hardware, Google advertising. And I also believe that way too much is thrown around, around $8 billion, $6 billion for Netflix. Ultimately, there's 486 television series that were made over the course of the last year, and some of them are great, some of them are not. Hulu has the access to, $25, $30 billion worth of content is on Hulu's platform. When you talk about Fox content, ABC content, NBC content, Disney, Time Warner content across the board, our originals, all of our live content. And our main goal is to delight customers with an entertainment, sports, and news experience that's both on demand and live, with and without ads, that gives consumers the choice and the opportunity to control their experience. And we also are a place where brands can interact with the consumers around content, around those communities,
in a safe way,
in a way that's safe. It's brand specific. Yeah. We have to work on the value transaction for advertisers and consumers so that they look at it as a benefit, because you can opt out. So we're incredibly excited to sit there and think, Hulu is going to go head to head with the likes of Apple and Amazon and Google and Facebook. And quite honestly, I think we have a real opportunity to create a complete experience and win.
I think just to add on to that, I think Hulu does have a unique consumer offering because of your subscription video on demand aspect, but also complemented now by the virtual MVPD, which is live. And when you think about competing against these large digital companies that are doing incredibly well in terms of monetization of digital ad revenue, they're still at their core, they're wildly successful companies, and I don't mean to be negative when I say this, but they're still largely utilities.
Right.
The last time I checked, nobody really has a massive connection with their search history.
Yeah.
And nobody has a massive connection with their shopping cart. So for us to create incredibly evocative experiences where we can engage people and bring them back over and over and over again, I think, I'm with Randy, bring it on. I think there are going to be a handful of premium content providers that are going to be able to compete on a global stage. And then there's going to be a massive shakeout of marginal players that are going to go away in the next 5 to 10 years.
Right. And two things to add. I also think the benefit we have is to create curated experiences. You think about the Olympics, you think about the World Cup, and Hulu in its product will be able to work with NBC, create a really robust experience around the Olympics, where when you open up the app and you get to viewing, you can surface that. And if you want to pick one sport versus another sport, we did a mega cast with ESPN last Monday for the championship game, which was an amazing game to begin with. Then you get into things like the World Cup coming, where we'll have coverage from everyone. And we can feed consumers and know what they want, whether they like ESPN's coverage or Fox's coverage, pre and post game, where the live games go. I'm excited even about the NBA playoffs when you get to a place where, from a consumer standpoint, I don't need to figure out what channel is. I know that I have TBS and TNT. I know that I have ABC and ESPN. I can put them together and really drive my experience and move it around. The other thing, we always get caught in this technology versus media. Look, every company, whether it's Ford, IBM, I guess they are a technology company, or P&G for that matter, in the world we live in today, you have to be great at the technology it takes to deliver your product. You can't fall down on that, whether that's your distribution, whether that's your transport, however you look at it. If you're not great at the technology that bridges the gap between you and manufacturing and your consumer, you're never going to be successful in this world.
What about the demo that advertisers really want to reach and can't reach very easily, millennials? Younger people who sort of drifted away from traditional media as we know it. I mean, Hulu seems to be been quite successful in harnessing millennials and reaching millennials. Would you agree with that?
Look, the average age of our subscribers today is 31 years old, right? So that's significantly younger than when you talk about broadcast or other things in the market. What we have to do is we have to create an experience for them that is enriching, that matters. That you have to have their choice on live or news or sports or entertainment. And you also have a price. You have to have a price that works. And I think that's why it's crucial for us to work with brands on really looking at how we create a relationship between the brand, Hulu, the price of Hulu with ads to a consumer in a way that they respect, they understand, and they value that transaction. Obviously, lower commercial loads is important. The ability to target and make ads relevant is important. The ability to test whether you can watch 60 seconds of an ad at the start of a show.
Lower commercial load, so fewer ads than on linear TV.
There are fewer ads than on linear TV today, yes. And all of the things that go into a relationship with a customer that you can know is going to be really important. And we can work with brands on how we deliver that experience, how we make it relevant, and how we integrate into that world. And again, we have data and targetability and addressability in an environment that is is as safe as the content that's in the ultimate ecosystem.
John, how do you reach millennials at Turner?
Well, we do.
Yeah.
And I think in the introductions, but at the risk of repeating what was said already, we reach 70% of all millennials in the United States every month. And we have 3 of the top 5 ad-supported cable networks with millennials, the only company that has that. But I want to use as an example a company, or a brand rather, that most people wouldn't think necessarily would be a millennial brand, CNN. CNN is engaging fans in the way that fans want to consume news, which is incredibly different based on your age demographic or your age cohort. So for example, on the linear US network, CNN, which is aging down a little bit, I mean, I think Fox News is north of 65 years old, that's 65 to dead. CNN is now down in the lower 50s on US linear TV. The desktop app is lower 40s average age. The app is 32, and people who consume CNN on Snapchat, like my 20-year-old daughter, the average age is 24. So CNN is reaching all different age cohorts, but it's in a very, very different and optimized experience. My daughter will never watch CNN on linear TV, but if you have a brand that's resonant with people and people can identify with that, you provide a good world-class experience, there's no reason why it has to be one size fits all. We're going to have to be able to program for people in the way that they want to consume the brands. And that's true for Cartoon Network and Adult Swim and even our entertainment brands, TBS and TNT.
And advertisers are responding to this? I mean,
absolutely. Absolutely. And Randy mentioned lower commercial interruption. I mean, on regular ad-supported cable, we announced a year ago that we were going to lower our commercial loads on True TV as an experiment. And we've now announced that for our original programming on TNT and TBS, we're lowering our commercial loads because the consumer experience ultimately is going to dictate where they spend their time. If they can spend time off platform on non-ad supported platforms in a bingeable way, that's a great experience. We have to somehow compete with that. So at True TV, we've got our limited commercial interruptions have proven that awareness goes up 30%, engagement with the ads and the products goes up 10, and the ROI on the advertising is anywhere between 4 and 16 times higher than in a more cluttered, scheduled environment. So that's the direction that we're going to be moving in, and my suspicion is the rest of the industry will probably be moving in. You're already there.
Yeah, and I think that we have to get better at language we use and what we talk about. But look, millennials consume content incessantly, right? And it's how you reach them. They're there. You have to put it in the right place, and you have to have the right message, and you have to have the right environment. Look, we've added a little over 5 million subs in 2017. The majority of those subs that were added with the average age of 31 are ad-supported subs.
Right. So these are young people who have not been turned off by advertising if it's given to them in the right way.
If it's given to them in the right way, they understand the value transaction. Look, when we launched, I think it was 2015 when Hulu launched ad-free, we had a lot less complaints about the ads because there was an option.
Right.
Rather than complain, I can pay $4 or whatever the differential was at the time and go on an ad-free basis. And we're seeing that there's a lot of back and forth. We haven't seen a tremendous amount of difference in churn and other things in ad-free versus ad. So if you give them the right environment to experience those ads, which I think Hulu's doing a good job and we can always get better at, I think they'll engage because they see the value transaction. They understand that I'm paying less.
Right. What about the value of having a hit, or a hit that is...
Hits are good.
Hits are good. And a hit that's won critical acclaim. I was sort of thinking about Handmaid's Tale.
I told Joel Stillerman, our new, relatively new head of program, I said, just pick those.
Just make, more of those. Yeah. But I mean, what does that do to your?
Yeah, it's simple.
What did the Handmaid's Tale do to your business and the sort of the acclaim that
there are probably others that could answer this much better than I can here. But from looking back in the 2 months we've been here, it did a lot of things. And one, it brought the creative community to Hulu in a way that it wasn't there before. And I think the programming group, Craig Erwick and others have done a really good job at embracing that creative community and bringing them there. It drove subs. We know that post Emmys and as Handmaid's Tale seemed to pick up traction, first show that a fair amount of subs came in, first show they watched was Handmaid's Tale, which is another great way to look at the experience and how do you know what somebody comes in and watches, and then how do you have other shows lined up to do that. So I think it drove our sub numbers, it drove our creative community money. It had a huge impact, from what I can see in a brief time, on the employee base and the culture and the opportunity. And all of a sudden, what may or may not have been achievable, everybody believed we can aspire to be this at a much higher bar. And I think that creative opportunity and creative excellence is something that our owners, Time Warner being one of them, have great experience. And you see how hard it is for other companies and others to figure out what that right mix of how do you drive it, how do you make it work, and how do you make it so it's not just a one-off, right? I think Amazon has done a really good job from the award standpoint, but how does that come together? And I think when you think about Hulu and you look at their overall experience and you blur what is live and what is on demand, you start to see you can line up things. And whether it's on-demand shows that may come after A Handmaid's Tale, or you think about adult animation and how you move somebody from Bob's Burgers to Rick and Morty, to a very popular shows on Hulu. There's all kinds of ways to engage people and really start to create that connection and that experience that everyone's looking for.
Well, Rick and Morty's a ton of show.
Yeah.
Adult Swim.
Yeah.
We have 3,600 hours of programming on Hulu.
Just to be clear, you can watch it on Hulu, Rick and Morty.
Has the dynamic changed?
And then come back to Adult Swim.
There you go.
It's a nice virtuous
circle. It's a nice ecosystem.
Yeah. But has it changed? Was it the same basic principle? I mean, hits drive everything. Was it the same for you?
Well, hits are better than misses.
Yes.
Again, at the risk of stating the obvious. Look, I think when you look at our two big network vessels, it's TNT and TBS. They drive the lion's share of the profits at Turner, and Time Warner for that matter. And 2 years ago, when Kevin Riley came over from Fox, actually, we gave him, David Levy and I gave him a very ambitious task, which is to rebrand TNT, which is principally a drama network, and TBS, which is a comedy network. He's batting 1,000 in comedy right now. We've renewed 8 of the original shows that are on there. In 2017, we had the top 3 new comedies and 6 of the top 20 comedies on all of cable. There becomes, and Randy said this, and I don't want to just repeat what he said, but to the creative community, there starts to build this institutional muscle memory of, if I got a great comedy script, where do I want to bring it? Yeah. Where does it have the best chance to succeed? Where is the creative team the best to work with? And TBS is doing fantastic. Drama, you know, we've had some really terrific hits with Animal Kingdom and Claws, and we've had some misses too. Drama's an incredibly tough category. But the significance of hits is as much about the branding of the network as it is driving the economics. Because when you run 24/, 7-hour networks, there's still a lot of hours to fill that you're going to have syndicated programming or other types of shoulder programming. So, you know, the art of scheduling to make sure that we can continue to monetize big audiences, profile the hits, make sure we've got a loud voice in the creative community, and you know, it's something that takes time to do. When Kevin came over, it took us a long time to convince Kevin to come over to TBS and TNT. When I spent time in the creative community, nobody really knew the significance that TBS and TNT had. Right. And we had to convince Kevin that it was actually probably a bigger job than the Fox job, and he didn't realize it until he came over. So I'm proud of everything that the creative teams are doing there, but that's not enough. We have to do more. Time is not our friend. As more and more viewership is going out of the traditional ecosystem, we're building now 360 brands, or what Kevin's calling omni-channel. You take a star like Samantha Bee. How do you extend Samantha Bee's voice outside of just her weekly show? How do we do shoulder programming? How do we market it in other areas and other ways? How do we extend Samantha onto digital? I mean, the business is getting harder and harder. There's more opportunities to reach fans than ever before. We need to be more creative in terms of how we do it.
Yeah, and I think Samantha Bee's a great example, and I think how can we at Hulu make the experience of watching Samantha Bee better than watching Samantha Bee anywhere else, right? By working with John, working with David, working with Kevin, and figuring out what is that connection. Is there more content? Is there more things that she can do? Or can we offer consumers short form around Samantha Bee? And we have the ability to do all that. One thing I'll add is, look, hits are great, and good television is better than bad television, but I'm not sure any of us know all the time what's bad and what's good to everyone. The challenge is it's not what it used to be for the studios. You can't just have one hit pay for everything, right? And as a platform, as a provider of content and a complete experience, especially in a world where you can binge and you can do other things, when that show's over, you need to give them something else. Yeah. You can't wait 2 years to bring back the next version of whatever that series is. You need to provide them with what is next. And I guess
because audiences are more demanding, or there's more choice, or?
Well, I guess one of the downsides of 486 television shows is people can really set their bar high on what they want to watch. The expectation for content is so through the roof. Right. And what is truly a hit, what is truly quality content is, it's really a high bar at this point in time. And part of the challenge, and I think why Hulu has an advantage in this challenge, is just the entire library of content. I think we just announced we have 75,000 episodes of television, and as well as live live sports and news in that process. So there's an environment that somebody can go in and if we do our jobs right, use the data, use the usage facts, and provide them and use the recommendation engines that give them options, I think we have a huge opportunity to elongate the viewing process and try and make it so it's not so dominant based on one hit or another, especially for a platform.
But this is why, notwithstanding the clutter and all of the options for people to engage with, if you can find a fan, you have to attach yourself to them. And as Randy said, continue to provide them with the type of content that will keep them engaged. Because I read somewhere where 9 out of every 10 Americans consider themselves a fan of something. And 8 of the 9 identify themselves as being fans of at least 5 things. Fandom is about self-identity, it's about self-expression. These people evangelize, they socialize, they're advocates. There's so much free marketing around fandom. So that's why the business has to be transitioning from what is traditional, I'm going to go for reach and attention, and now we need to engage fans, which means we, as programmers and platforms, have responsibilities to deliver these fans the type of experiences that they're going to demand and deserve, because otherwise, if there's 489 other options, they're going to get bored and they're going to move on, and they may never come back.
What about power of live? And you have the live news network, big fan in Donald Trump, likes to tune into CNN from time to time. What is how powerful and dynamic can live be in both cases? Because you have your live service now too.
Look, very powerful. We find that offering live sports and news and entertainment has broadened the parameters that people look to us and come to us for. There's more engagement, there's more viewing, and it's really a dynamic platform as you blur these lines. What we also see is people are really engaged with news and sports live. Sports, they watch episodes. I'm sorry, sports, they watch events.
Right.
Whether that, if you have a college football game on ESPN and you're a college football game fan, you'll watch it on ESPN. If there's a better game or a different game or a game you're a fan of, you'll watch it on Fox Sports. And NBA, whether it's ESPN or Turner or ABC in that process, I think they'll find the event. News is a brand. I mean, what the data will say is, you choose. I'm a CNN viewer, or I'm a Fox viewer, or I'm an MSNBC viewer, and that's what it is, right? We hope there's somebody on the other side of the screen at some point in time, but it's pretty consistent across the board. And entertainment in that is also something that ultimately, in an on-demand platform, we're finding that even with live channel or content that's distributed via live channels, there's a great deal of product that ultimately comes back to an on-demand viewing. And that goes back to whether somebody shows up at 8:10, or they watch at 11 o'clock, or the next morning. It's all there for them in an environment which they can find and they can discover and they can tap into.
I remember you and I spoke about it a year ago, I think just after the election, and CNN ratings were through the roof because of,
They're higher now.
Right. So so Donald Trump has been good for CNN.
Well, business is great.
Business is good. Right.
I mean, if you look
at diplomatic way of answering the question.
Look, if you look at the ratings as a traditional measurement of each of CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, they're all up.
All right.
And in many respects, in the United States, there's just more interest in politics now.
Right.
Whether you characterize that as being a positive or a neutral, I don't have an opinion as to. I do, but I'll keep it to myself.
Yes, pretty good idea.
But if you think about the place that CNN has and the news cycles, which literally are daily now because of Twitter, there's never been, in my humble opinion, a more important time for a large journalistic organization, for CNN, to occupy an important position in the national, if not the global conversation.
Right.
And I think all 3 news organizations on the cable side do a terrific job. They obviously have very different editorial voices. And as Randy said, I think, my father, who is a staunch Fox News fan, he's never going to watch CNN. And that's okay. But there's a product there that is going to super serve him, and he's a fan of Fox News. But for CNN, business has never been better. We've been in the top 10 of all ad-supported cable networks now for 5 quarters in a row. It's the first time in 22 years we've been able to do that. And I don't see that diminishing anytime soon.
But is the political environment, climate, pretty... Well, you read and hear what the president says, and it sounds fairly charged.
You can read it on Twitter every day.
Yeah. I mean, does that make things difficult for CNN, or cause any anxiety in where you sit, or not?
This is what our journalists do
Right.
for a living. I think we have an incredibly energized, committed group of journalists who take what they do extremely seriously and feel what they do is incredibly important to informing, as I said, the United States and the world. And I think we've got a bunch of tired journalists because the news cycle just, everybody was thinking after the election things would calm down and settle down. They haven't.
No.
And our ratings this year, or in 17 rather, were higher than they were in 16. And my suspicion is our ratings are going to be even better this year, and our digital numbers are through the roof. And our video consumption in digital is through the roof. And
especially now that Oprah's running.
Of course, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Did Zaslav announce that earlier?
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah.
All but confirmed it. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, it's great to be in the live, you know, I mean, in terms of our original programming on our entertainment networks, well north of half of viewing is on demand now.
Yeah.
So you're continuing to see people take into their own control when they want to watch their favorite video content. But events like sports and like news are going to continue to be primarily consumed live, and I think that's a great place for a company like Turner to be, to occupy both places.
I mean, your rivals at Disney, who own ESPN, they've had some softening of sports ratings. At, I think at NFL, they've been softening NFL ratings across the board, unless I'm mistaken. But from where you sit, each of you, is there just a sort of sports rights bubble? Does that continue to expand? Does the price of sports go down at any point, given the sort of fragmentation of viewing and the different platforms that sports are available on now, like yours and on demand?
I've spent a big chunk of my working life in the sports business, and always on the buying side. And what I've learned to say is that there's even when you think there's a bubble, there's always someone else. So is the value of sports rights going to go down? I don't believe so. I think what we all have to do is figure out what is the next business model that underpins the economics around sports rights. I mean, you look at what Verizon just did with ultimately what are some mobile rights for tablets and phones. I think it was $2 billion or something like that. To some degree, it depends. Does Amazon get serious? Does Facebook get serious? Does
I mean, do you think they will? I mean, it'd be the obvious thing to do for them, wouldn't it?
I think everyone has to look at their own business, figure out what their economics are, and determine if they can create value in that. And I think Turner does a great job with the NBA. ESPN does a great job with the NBA. The NFL is in an interesting time right now. But what nobody talks about, you talk about it's down 10% versus X. If you go back 5 years, that's about what it's down over 5 years, when every other part of television, or every other part of content is down much more significantly than that. And you could argue that as things become more fragmented and as there's more choice, live content is going to become even more important, and if it's important, then that should increase the value of it. On the other side, I'll say it should all cost less. Yeah. But
it'd be nice.
You make your bet with sports. You know what it is. You have a pretty good idea of where they are. I think there are fans all over the world of NFL teams or baseball teams or whatever it is that have to have that product. And whether it's a very niche product around UFC Live or some of the other things, or it's a broad product like the NFL, you just have to be able to believe that you can monetize whatever it is you're going to pay, and then go about doing it.
I think sports is the ultimate example of fandom. Ultimate example of fandom. And if you look at Turner, I'm thankful that we have a relationship with the NCAA with March Madness now through 2032.
Wow, yeah.
We have a relationship with the NBA till 2024, at least. And Major League Baseball, where we cover the playoffs till 2021. So we'll be able to wait and see what happens. We're not going to be in any position where we need to add incremental sports. We'll opportunistically do it if we can. We've quietly acquired a lot of global soccer rights over the last 12 months, particularly in Latin America, which is doing really, really well. We've got a fantastic over-the-top Argentine soccer offering, which in 4 months has 150,000 subscribers, which is off the charts in terms of significance. But if you want fans, you're going to tap into sports. I don't think the value of sports is going to go down anytime soon.
Do you think, is it inevitable that Amazon or Facebook or whoever it is tries to get into that space?
I mean, look, you're more of an expert in this than I am, because like you said, you spent a lot of your career. I just think of, when we work with leagues, we know the leagues really care about their brands. I mean, that's an obvious statement. And they want to partner with companies that can present their brands and their sport in a way that will promote and provide an optimized experience for consumers. And that's not to say that there aren't going to be incremental bidders from some of these large digital companies, but the experience of watching video on those platforms is not the same as what we can offer and others can offer. So, time will tell.
Okay, well, running out of time, so I have a couple more questions. But streaming and on-demand viewing means there's a lot of potential for data collection about who's watching your programming, who's watching the stuff you put on. How valuable is that data? What is it? What can you do with it for advertisers, and what?
It's not just about advertising. I think it's not just about advertising. I think advertising is potentially a byproduct and a benefit. Look, the collection of usage data and consumption data is really important so that you can provide in a transparent way, in a passive way, what's next. And if somebody likes one thing, do they like another thing? And how you move people through your environment, how you can create relationships with them, that's what's really important. And as the recommendation engine gets better, and you can constantly improve that so that you can provide consumers with more and more content that they're going to love and they're going to engage with, right? And you'll know times of day, you'll know when they watch, you'll know all these things that allow you to provide great content. And because of that relationship, you're a conduit to brands in a way that you haven't been before. And you can do, again, for Hulu, you can be, you're brand safe, you're in an environment, you can be targeted, you can be addressable, you can be third-party verified. It's a really great environment that you should be able to expand and grow as long as you respect that consumer experience and don't do what we all did in linear television and just take advantage of that experience or that consumer by constantly adding more and more and more. We have to respect them.
This is an area where I would, just to add on, I think the advertising industry needs to move with a much greater sense of urgency here. We've been hearing a lot about data. We've had a data strategy at Turner now for 4 years at least. But time is not the friend of anybody. And when we're competing against platforms that are non-ad supported, and we know it's not just about premium content, it's also about what is the consumer experience. We have to drive the value of the advertising that is done in the midst of all of our content video. And the industry is still, in my opinion, too slow, too fragmented, and we need to move with a greater sense of urgency. Otherwise, by the time the industry moves to addressability, full addressability, which, by the way, we've had addressable products available now in the marketplace for 4 years. 5% of our business is addressable. It's selling audiences. But we need to move to where we're network agnostic, day part agnostic, demographic agnostic, and age agnostic. I just turned 50.
Happy birthday.
Congratulations, yeah. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Well, thank you. Not today.
Oh, okay.
But thank you anyway.
Belated wishes.
So kind.
Yeah.
But the idea that if we're selling to an advertiser a demographic of 18 to 49,
right,
and I've just fallen out of that. So if I'm a Nielsen rated home and I'm watching a show and we're not getting paid, like the last time I checked, I've got a little bit more disposable income today than I had yesterday.
But who's at fault there? Or
It's just the legacy of the industry.
Right.
We've got to move more quickly to embrace that the way we can monetize audiences has to be much more contemporary and progressive than the old way and the constant way of doing things.
So is there a problem with the structure of the ad companies or the way they're set up with all the...
I think it's it's the fragmentation of the industry. Look, we're making great strides at Turner. We've got lead edge products. We, along with, actually with Fox, started OpenAP. Which is an open standards platform to try to help make it easier for people to identify audience demographics and genres. And we have to keep at it. But my fear and what makes me wake up in the sweats is like when the industry finally figures out how to get to full addressability, everybody's going to be watching video on Hulu and Netflix. That would be bad.
Sounds like a good plan.
Sounds great for you, yeah.
Well, it's good. We're a 10% owner of Hulu, so we're okay. We're hedged.
Yeah,
but
I think this, look, this adds to this is we can innovate, we can do a lot of different things. There's only so much you can do with ad products in a linear world, right? As we move to IP delivered, as whether it's Hulu or others in this process, there's a ton of things we can do. And I think the relationship has to get back to where brands are looking to sell their products. Brands are looking to establish themselves. They're looking to create awareness. They have to get in business with some folks, whether it's Hulu or Turner or Fox or ABC or NBC for that matter, or quite honestly for Facebook and the rest of them. They also have to leave behind some of the measurement and some of the legacy issues that they have at the agency level that prevent them from being able to move forward. And it's also brands have to stop saying what they want and then doing the exact opposite.
Right.
I want addressability, I want targetability, I want value, I want effectiveness, I want efficiency. Oh, and by the way, can you lower my CPM by 10%? Because that's really what the agency is going to get bonused on and everybody else. That stuff has to stop if you really want to move this industry forward. And you want to avoid a situation where 5 years from now, content is not available for brands to connect with communities because it is all people have opted out because they will have the opportunity to opt out.
So a bit of a note of caution there from both of you. I'm sensing generally you're both quite optimistic about.
Oh yeah.
TV.
No, I mean, I'm incredibly optimistic.
Yeah.
I mean, there's more video consumption today than ever before. As you said, the millennial audiences and the younger audiences are consuming more video and doing more things than ever before. And connected devices have never been more affordable and more available, and there's never been more connectivity. This is all a positive thing. It presents headwinds and challenges and means that we're going to need to change the way we do business. But if you're well-branded, large-scale, willing to innovate, willing to move and be nimble, willing to launch new products, I think there's going to be a really, really bright future because for people who, I mean, Hulu is a great example. It's not like you can say there's not a lot of TV available without Hulu. Yet you now have 17 million households that are paying you, or subscribers rather, that are paying you extra out-of-pocket money because your service is worth it.
Right.
So if you provide a premium service to people that like it, they're going to pay for it.
I think one of the key elements going forward, and there's no question this is a transition, it's been coming for a while, cord cutting, all of those things that you talked about, shaving, pay TV, traditional, linear, OTT, even the OTT space, I kind of get worked up sometimes. I don't even, what is OTT, right? When cable came in, did we say that was like under? Because where did we go? Ultimately, everybody's trying to get to the consumer. Everybody's trying to get to the consumer. What this is really about is getting to the consumer in a way where you can create a relationship. And what's really important to that, and I think the winners in this race will be companies who develop a trust with their consumers so they can innovate together, they can manage through a transition, they can manage through a cost process. And if you have the trust if your brand has the trust of the consumer, I think you can really start to create great experiences for them in a way that you haven't been able to in the past. And one of the challenges, live TV is hard. For a lot of reasons. There's a lot of infrastructure, there's a lot of things that go into it. When you really create an environment, now you're talking about billing systems, and going to direct to consumer is hard. There's a complete cultural shift from being a wholesaler to a direct to consumer company. And as we evolve through that process, it's really going to be important that we gain the trust. And we don't have the luxury. I mean, technology companies around the world, they'll launch a minimal viable product, they'll iterate on it 2.0, 7.0, 8.0, it'll get better, it'll get better, it'll get better. The expectation, you may dislike your pay TV company, DirecTV, Comcast, Charter, and others, but when you turn the TV on, it's going to work, and you're not going to get buffering, you're not going to get kicked out, you're not going to get any of that. So the bar is incredibly high right from the start. And I think the ability to constantly work to gain those consumers' trust is going to allow, that's what will ultimately, I think, be a big part in determining who's successful in the end.
Good positive note to end on. Gentlemen, we're out of time, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matthew.
I wanted to
thank you.
Thank you.